This special bonus episode of From a Gen X Point of View is brought to you today by the letter M. M stands for mail this week. Got a few things in the mail that I'm going to talk about as we go along. But hello, everyone, and welcome again to From a Gen X Point of View. I'm Mr. Jason Roskam, going solo this week for another bonus episode, here to talk some retro games. So, jumping right into it. This is going back to episode 2 now From a Gen X Point of View, where Dave and I talked about the NES. Got me really, really interested in retro gaming again. Not that I was ever disinterested, because if you could look around the studio here, I've still got a ton of my old consoles, my original NES, my original SNES, N64, I've got like 3 original PlayStations for some reason, PS2s, Sega Dreamcast. Oh, so many stories to tell about all of these consoles. But for now, I'm going to continue to focus on the NES and the Game Boy, because after that episode that Dave and I did about the NES, just really got me back into it. And yeah, I don't know. I've been kind of having this retro resurgence, if you will. And after the last bonus episode that I did, I started getting on eBay looking for copies of some games that I either used to own but got rid of or have always wanted. So I have a few things to show to start the episode. First of all, if you all remember, my favorite NES game of all time is the original Final Fantasy. Still absolutely love that game. And I owned it. I bought it when it first came out back in 89 time frame. But yeah, got it immediately, played the shit out of it for a couple of years. And then obviously as you get older, especially when I got into high school, video games started to take a back seat as I was, trying to work and chase girls and everything else. So the video game stuff kind of fell to the side. And eventually I ended up selling some of my original games. And Final Fantasy was one of them. And I'm so mad at myself for doing that. But worry not, because I now have a copy of Final Fantasy on the NES, a hard copy here that I actually got in the mail today from eBay. So the mail has been a big issue lately, if you want to talk about politics and all that, which we're not today. But apparently with cutbacks to the postal service, you could blame COVID or whatever, mail's running a little bit slow. So I bought this fucking game on eBay over a week ago. And I specifically bought it. I had a bunch to choose from. There were a bunch of buy it nows, there were a bunch of bids, but there was one that was in, because you can see the location when you're on eBay where it's shipping out from, and it was Cape May, New Jersey. I'm like, that's right up the road. It's an hour away or whatever. So I'm like, all right, boop, 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 go in. I buy it. And yeah, just got it today. So this fucking thing got lost in the mail. I even got a notification at one point from eBay and the post office. Yeah, your package has been delayed. Sorry, bro. So, but it did finally come in just in time for the show today. So now I own, once again, a copy of my favorite NES game of all time, the original Final Fantasy, which again, I have 2 different original NESs that I can actually play this on. So at some point I will do that. And when we get into what I've been playing these last couple of weeks, Final Fantasy is on there because I still have it on the NES Classic, but I want the real copy, goddammit. I'm a collector, okay? You'll find this out about me if I get into too deep into some of these episodes, but in addition to playing and enjoying games and things like that, I'm also kind of a collector. And you'll notice that if I ever talk about Magic the Gathering, because I've played that game off and on for years, and I don't just get the cards that I want to play with, but I also just try to get everything because I want to collect as many of the cards as I can. So that's that. Other thing that I got in the mail, if you also remember from my top 5 list from that second episode, another game on there was Dragon Warrior, another game that I had gotten rid of over the years, but now I have another copy of Dragon Warrior. Bought this one for under $10, and got it from like upstate New York, like Buffalo or something, and it came in 2 days. So fuck you, Cape May. But yeah, got this. So now I have a hard copy of Dragon Warrior. Same story with Final Fantasy. Bought it right after it came out back in the 80s. Played the shit out of it. Played the shit out of Dragon Warrior until Final Fantasy came out, and then Dragon Warrior was yesterday's news. But yeah, definitely want to own this again, hard copy. So now I have it, and all is well with the world. So one other thing that I bought this week, I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it was interesting because Kristen and I were talking about retro games, things like that. And something that she mentioned was, I think I was playing the NES Classic when she mentioned, Mm. Sorry. Had to take a sip out of my beer from my Jones barbecue and foot massage mug. But yeah, so I was playing my NES Classic, and Kristen chimes in out of nowhere. She's like, "I want to play Sonic Pinball again." I'm like, "It's not on the NES Classic." And then I mentioned, "Well, shit, I remember the Genesis had a mini thing." I think I might have been. Think I was on Ambien when we had this conversation because I was just about to go to bed. And she mentions this. She's like, "Well, I want to play that Sonic Pinball game again." I'm like, "Well, there's a Genesis Classic, I'm pretty sure." She's like, "Oh, is the Sonic Pinball on there?" Boop, boop, boop. Go to Google. Sure enough, it is. 90 seconds later, I order the Sega Genesis Mini on Amazon. They're fucking everywhere. It was under $60. So, and I gotta say, this thing has a pretty damn good selection of games. I don't know if you can see this on the video, but yeah, there's 40 games on here, some bonus titles. It's like every Sonic game, that Sonic Pinball, Altered Beasts. I think the Echo the Dolphin game is on here. I know the Streets of Rage is on here. A lot of good shit. There's a Street Fighter on here. Shinobi, good stuff. And you know, it's a good system. I should have brought in the actual system, but it's a mini version of the original Genesis. It's pretty awesome. So yeah, bought it on a whim, and she was happy. She played the Sonic Spinball for quite a while when we first got it, and I'm looking to diving into this. But I gotta say, I was never a Genesis guy. I was always a Nintendo loyalist, at least until the Xbox came out. Um, and I gotta say, the Sonic games, you know, when you compare Sonic and Mario, the Sonic games sucked. Let's be honest, people. The only good thing that the Sonic the Hedgehog games had for them, going for them, at least the 2D ones, they were colorful and they were fast. That was it. But the novelty of both of those wore off after like the second level. So you fucking zoom through 2 levels and you're like, okay, now what? Is this the whole game? And it pretty much is. There's no strategy involved. There's no nothing. There's no really good timing. Not like the Mario games. The Mario games are really good compared to Sonic. Fuck Sonic. I'm sorry. But that being said, I haven't played a Sonic game, at least a 2D Sonic game, in probably 20 years, maybe more. So I'm considering going back and retrying them, giving them another chance, see if maybe I was mistaken. So anyway, that was what I bought this week. So stuff that I'm looking at now. I'm looking at the rest of the Dragon Warrior series. Not 4 though. So I'm looking for 2 and 3 on the NES. Holy shit, they're expensive. Dragon Warrior, and I think I talked about this last bonus episode. Dragon Warriors 2 and 3 are pretty damn pricey. And I also remember, because I used to own these and I got rid of them again, the Dragon Warrior series got remade on the Game Boy Color, at least the first 3. The one cartridge is Dragon Warrior 1 and 2 in the same cartridge. And then there's just a Dragon Warrior 3 on its own. And I'm looking at those on eBay. I'm watching a few right now. They're pretty expensive. The Dragon Warrior 3 especially, God, those are, buy it nows are no less than $40, but most of them are around 50. So I'm watching a couple of ones that are just auctions, like not buy it nows. Maybe I can get a good deal on them, but I'm not hopeful. I'm watching one of the Dragon Warrior 1 and 2 that I think it's only at $10 right now, and there's about just a day and a half left on it. Still not hopeful. I'm sure the fucking bids are going to get crazy by the end. In addition to those, I'm also looking for the original Contra. As we get into the discussion about the emulation and everything, the original Contra is not that easy to access anymore unless you play it on an emulator. So I'm looking for an original cartridge of that. I had a bid out on one that ended this morning, but it ended up going for twice what my minimum bid was. So, all right, well, I'll let that guy have it. And hopefully I can come across a copy later on. I got to get back to looking at thrift stores too. Kristen and I used to go to thrift stores all the time, but as work got busy for me, I kind of wasn't able to go as much because the best time to go is right after they open in the mornings. Well, I'm at fucking work every day. So might start trying to work that in somehow. So stuff I've been playing this last week. See you later, Bronco Fett from the chat. And also hello and goodbye to the escape pod. I'm assuming that's Don Solsky. Just catching up on the chat real quick. Spirit, great. Yeah. the hanging out at a friend's house was kind of important. But anyway, moving on. More losses to Dr. Mario, to Kristen. She, every few days now, she'll convince me to play, and I'm like, I don't even know why I bother. But I try my hardest, and she kicks the shit out of me every fucking time. Doesn't matter if she's on something, if she's fucking drinking or whatever. Doesn't matter. Does not dull her Dr. Mario senses at all. So I can't beat her. I can't do it. And I don't really know how to up my game because she does shit that is unfathomable to me. Because the interesting thing about the Dr. Mario is both players get the exact same setup. Your board is exactly the same, and the pieces that fall down are exactly the same and come down in the exact same order. So you could technically be doing everything at the same time, exactly as the other person is doing. And when our games start, I'll be moving a couple of pieces, and she'll already be fucking doing all kinds of crazy combos and dropping shit on my side. I'm like, how did you do that? We've had like 3 pieces drop so far. I don't know. She's really good. So besides that, all right, before I get into the Contra story, let me talk about Final Fantasy. I know the last bonus episode, I talked about wanting to play Final Fantasy, the original for the NES, with 4 white mages. This is, it's kind of like an internet challenge, I guess. Some people are trying to beat the game using only 4 white mages, which is fucking crazy because the white mages in the game are your healers, and they have very little in the way of offensive spells, unless you're fighting against undead characters. If you're fighting against undead characters, that's the only positive of running this group. Otherwise, you're just doing lots of heals, lots of evasion type stuff. The battles can be slow and grindy, and you can just get kind of one-shotted because your people are so weak. They're cloth wearers. If you know anything about role-playing games, the cloth wearers are the squishy characters. Like, one fucking good hit and your guy's done for. So I did start that though. So on the NES Classic, I started a game of Final Fantasy with the 4 mages, the 4 white mages, and I haven't gotten very far. I made it to the second town. I beat Garland in that first dungeon, and then I made it to the second town where you get the pirate ship, and I eventually beat all those pirates, which when you fight them, it spawns 9 pirates, and they're not susceptible to white mage damage, so it took a while to beat all those guys down. But I got the ship, and now I haven't done anything since I got the ship. But I'm going to try. I'm going to try to play through the whole game with 4 white mages, so we'll see how it goes. So pulled up my, and this is kind of what is going to lead to this discussion, is I pulled out my old Raspberry Pi because one of the biggest things for anybody who doesn't know, a Raspberry Pi is like a mini computer on a Linux operating system. It's very, very simple. It's a very tiny processor in there. A very basic Linux operating system, a couple USB ports, an HDMI port, and a power plug. That's it. And one of the biggest things that people use these for is for old, for emulators, for old retro games. And I ended up, this was like 2 or 3 years ago when I got this, and I put it together and I put the emulation stuff on it, and I kind of lost interest really early on with this. And I busted it out a couple of days ago, again, after doing these podcasts and talking about the retro games and stuff. So I brought it out, I hooked it up to my TV, and I had like all these NES games on there. And my son, Ben, has been bugging me. He's been wanting to play a video game with me, either on the NES Classic or the SNES Classic. I'm like, all right, I got a game we can play together. And I busted out the original Contra on that emulator. So we didn't even finish the first level because he was not ready for this type of a game. Not only is it, I mean, don't get me wrong, my youngest son Ben loves first person shooters. He loves like the Call of Duty games. He loves the Halo games. He's all about the action shoot, fucking kill people games. But he was not ready for the difficulty level of an old retro game like this, to where one hit kills you, period. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter if it's an enemy just walking into you. Doesn't matter if it's a single straight bullet hitting you. One hit and you're dead in Contra. Period. And that's it. And, you know, I play the game so much. Like, I know where to fucking dodge and where to be at certain points in the level. He could never get past the first level. And we tried 3 or 4 times, and he could never survive to the end of the first level. And he's like, I don't want to play anymore. So that just kind of shows the difference generationally between us and our early games and like our kids, because even in my son's early games, like the first Halo came out long before he was born, like 6 7 years before he was born. So and that's some of his like old those are retro games to him, or like the first Halo games on the original Xbox. So I just thought that was hilarious. And I think I ended up playing another game of Contra, and I made it to like the fourth level, I want to say, before I'm like, okay, that was enough for now. So, but yeah, it was a lot of fun just seeing him experience that type of thing for the first time. So, Lunar Girl in the chat used to know that game like the back of her hand. Yep, Contra was a super popular NES game back in the day, which blows my mind that it is not available anywhere for a legitimate purchase on any kind of online virtual console, whatever. I know Bronco Fett mentioned earlier in the chat that one of the games that I was talking about is available on the Sonic Spinball is available on Xbox Live. So in doing my research for this episode, I actually didn't even think to look at the Xbox Virtual Console. So we'll kind of skip that for now. But yeah, I wanted to talk about the whole emulation thing and whether to emulate or not, right? I think is what the title is of the video that I made. And it's, to me, is it worth actually trying to get these physical copies of these original games, or because emulation is so prevalent on the internet and it's so easy to get into the stuff, especially with the older systems, your NES, SNES, is it really worth it to try to play some of these games legitimately, either buying the old original physical copies or looking for it on your Nintendo Virtual Consoles, be it on the Switch or the Wii U or the 3DS? So I kind of came on here to talk about this and maybe have a little bit of an interaction with the chat, because something that's always boggled my mind is the fact that so many companies, Nintendo really did lead the way when it came to this whole virtual console stuff. When the Wii came out, they really embraced it. Like, even though Nintendo was super slow to embrace online digital purchases, playing their games online, because Xbox and PlayStation had already been doing that for several years before Nintendo jumped on. And they started doing the virtual console stuff, which was offering original NES games and then some other consoles, Super Nintendo, but we're not going to talk about those. We're sticking strictly to the NES and maybe a little Game Boy. But initially, they were offering a lot of games, and they were actually offering games from other developers. So not just the Nintendo-owned games, because when you start doing the research and you start looking, you look at things like your NES Classic, you look at the Wii U Virtual Console, the 3DS Virtual Console, you see a lot of the same shit. You see all of the Nintendo-made games. You see all three of the Mario games, Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3. If you're lucky, you'll also get the Lost Levels, which was the Super Mario 2 in Japan. Super fucking hard, by the way. You see your Legend of Zeldas, your Kid Icarus, fucking Balloon Fight, that goddamn game. Let me tell you a story about Balloon Fight. When I was a kid, the Nintendo was huge to me. Like the video game thing, all that was fucking just it was so engrossing because of games like Zelda and Dragon Warrior, Final Fantasy, the Mario games and all that. But I liked the newer style of game. The fact that Nintendo, like we talked about in episode 2 of the podcast, was finally starting to get away from just these arcade style games where it's just you play level after level after level with no progression, and it's just you go until you fucking die. There's no end to the game. Balloon Fight is one of those fucking arcade style games, and I got it as a Christmas present for my Aunt Becky. Becky, I love you. This is not a dig on you at all, but my Aunt Becky got it for me for Christmas. I think this might have been the first Christmas I had an NES. She might have coordinated with my mom, knowing that I got it. And Balloon Fight was a budget game at that point. It was a Nintendo-made game. Nobody really fucking cared about it. And yeah, Pac-Man is a perfect example of that arcade style game. But she bought me Balloon Fight, and because it was one of like 3 games that I owned, I'm like, yeah, fuck it, I'll play it. And oh my god, I've got the music of that game ingrained in my head. And it didn't take me long to realize, like, there's no end to this. It's just You keep doing these levels, they progressively get harder, but the game never fucking ends. And now you see Balloon Fight everywhere. And Nintendo's still trying to charge like $5 a pop for this thing across any of the systems. And I ain't paying a fucking penny for that game again. I'm sorry, but fuck Balloon Fight. Which, oh, by the way, in the original Animal Crossing on the GameCube, yeah, the GameCube, you can unlock a few NES games on there, like full-blown emulated NES games, and Balloon Fight is one of them. Go figure. So thought that was a little fun tidbit. So, but yeah, you see a lot of the usual games on these. Your punch outs featuring Mr. Dream, not your Mike Tyson's Punch Out. Oh, by the way, Mike Tyson's Punch Out is also another game that I want a hard copy of that I need to start looking for on eBay. But a lot of these old NES games just aren't available out there. Like, or even Dragon Warrior, the original version of Dragon Warrior, nowhere to be found on any current virtual console. You can't buy it on fucking the 3DS virtual console. You can't get it on the Switch, whatever their stupid online thing is now, which is not fucking worth it if you're in it for the NES games, by the way. It's a garbage selection. Unless you just want to play the original Mario Brothers, Zelda, but those are available fucking everywhere anyway. The fuck was I talking about? I lost my train of thought. Hold on. Let me have a drink. So there's a few exceptions. I started running down the list of, Carnob. Yeah, that's a game that I doubt you could ever find anywhere. In fact, now that you mention, I'm just going to look it up on eBay real quick, just to see how much an original copy is. Carnob NES. Sidebar. Man, you can buy it now for $20. Man, I remember that game too. But yeah, you're not going to find that on any of these virtual consoles, I don't think. So I was looking down the list, and one of them, I think, it's the Wii U. Apparently, the Wii U virtual console is still going. Like, I thought that system was fucking dead as dead. But as of right now, the Nintendo eShop is still available on the Wii U, and there's some pretty good stuff on here. All the Mega Man games. I know Mega Man 2 was on the NES Classic, but that was it. To be fair, though, Capcom's been really good about re-releasing the Mega Man games on other systems. Like, I have the Mega Man collections for the GameCube, I think, and it was like all the Mega Man games. So kudos to Capcom for being one of the only companies to fucking embrace this stuff. But it's otherwise very shitty selection. Just all the typical stuff. The Castlevanias, Konami's been pretty good about that. But whenever you look at all of these virtual consoles, it's always Super C, the sequel to Contra on the NES. The original Contra, nowhere to be found. Anywhere. It doesn't matter. And there's got to be some sort of legal fuck up that happened with the original Contra. That's the only thing I can think of. Or they just think people think it's too hard and they would complain and get a refund. I don't know. But yeah, it's so many of these games. And you could, especially on the original NES, you could list hundreds of games that somebody remembers, somebody has fond memories of, somebody would love to go back and would love to replay, but you just can't because they're not available. Like I said, with the Dragon Warrior games, that's when I lost my train of thought. Square Enix, they have remade those at least once or twice, and I think you can get the remade version, but the original version right now, as far as I know, the only way you can play the original version of Dragon Warrior legally is to buy this physical fucking copy. Final Fantasy, I was shocked when they announced that the original Final Fantasy was going to be on the NES Classic. Like, blown away, because quite frankly, it was available once on the original Wii Virtual Console, but that's dead and gone. They shut that down a year or two ago. So, and then, Square Enix, they've been all about their remakes because they've remade the first 6 Final Fantasies multiple times over, and they'd rather push these remakes because you can get the remakes fucking everywhere. But if you want that original version, then you have to go back. Watched item ends in 14 minutes. Dragon Warrior 1 and 2, Game Boy Advance. Hold on. We are going to pause so I can pull this up on my phone and watch this auction. Where the fuck is my eBay app? Riveting, I know. I've got like 4 pages of apps and I can't find eBay. There it is. Right next to Facebook. All right. Notifications. Oh, yeah, there's my outbid on Contra. Thanks for that. My eBay. Holy shit. Dragon Warrior 1 and 2 is sitting at $12 right now. It ends in 15 minutes. All right, you might see me win this live. It's coming from Canada though, so in the words of South Park the movie, fuck Canada. Hey, fuck you, buddy. But I am going to sit here and watch this. Who knows? Maybe I'll get lucky. They want $12 fucking shipping for this thing. I guess because it's coming from Canada. But anyway, 13 minutes this thing ends. So Lunar Girl and Dragon Buddy are mentioning in the chat that they've got a alleged gold mine of old games packed away in a closet. You guys need to do that. Like when you get back from your little vacation, when you hang out with the fucking escape pod guys and all of that, you guys need to get home. You need to go through that closet, and then you need to let me know what you have. Because if it's something I want to play, then I may have to ask to borrow it or buy it from you. But that's another story. So I could come up with a whole laundry list of who complain about how you can't find the original version anymore. But I mean, I think you kind of get the point. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are our age that there are some games like that they'd like to play again, but it's really not that big of a deal for them. And I guess maybe from the developer standpoint, the juice might not be worth the squeeze. So we're kind of left in this weird state of limbo where if you want some of these games, like I mentioned in the last bonus episode, Snow Brothers, that game that my wife really loved, that her mother just threw out one day, $200 if you want to get a fucking copy of that game. And that is nowhere, never been re-released, never anything. So the only way you can legitimately play it right now is to plunk down $200 fucking dollars and buy it on eBay. So really, even though, disclaimer, emulating, downloading ROMs and all of that is not legal. I am not telling anybody to break the law. But let's be honest, when that is your only option to play this game, then people are going to fucking do it. Again, because especially since these files are so fucking small. If you go back to the NES, these game files, these ROMs that you can download are in the megabytes, like the teens of megabytes, if that. Super small files. So transferring them over the internet is fucking easy as anything. So, I mean, the motivation to get this stuff legitimately just isn't there. And because most people are not going to pay money for the physical copy. Most people probably don't have a console, or they don't want to bring out a console and clutter up their house and everything else. Whereas me, this whole studio is nothing but clutter. So I have that going for me. And if they really want that feeling of nostalgia, then they can just fire up the emulator and play it for a few minutes and then get their fix. And let's be honest, that's what a lot of this is. For me, it's a tough line, because if I'm going to play a game seriously and legitimately, like if I'm going to be spending any amount of time on this, I want the real copy. I want a real NES controller in my hand, not some fucking PC controller. Although, if you are going to do emulation, I would recommend using an original Xbox 360 wired controller. Those are, to me, those are the perfect video game controllers, period. And they're compatible with most emulators. So you plug one of those in, you use an original Xbox 360 controller to play your emulated games if you were to do so. But the Gen X Point of View podcast does not encourage breaking the law whatsoever. But for me, though, like when I'm doing the Final Fantasy, doing the 4 mage run, the 4 white mage, I want a real NES controller, which this NES Classic, the controllers are identical to the original ones. So, except for the short cords, which it's annoying. So you still get that original game feel, but even the NES Classic still doesn't quite have that real feeling. I would rather get an old school CRT tube television hook up my, use the fucking coaxial screw to hook my original NES console up to it and play an original NES cartridge. If I'm going to, try to play a game seriously, if I have that option, that's my preferred method. So when I try to replay Dragon Warrior, I'm going to do it. I'm going to hook up my NES and I'm going to replay Dragon Warrior. I'm going to, if I can get a copy of this Dragon Warrior 2 and 3, be it for the Game Boy or for the NES, same thing. In fact, I really want to replay Dragon Warrior 3. I have very fond memories of that. That came out after Final Fantasy. So this was, Dragon Warrior was starting to chase Final Fantasy. Dragon Warrior came out. They were the first ones out the gate with this like real legitimate, full-fledged role-playing game on a console. And it was great at the time, but of course the first Final Fantasy just fucking took everything to new heights. So Dragon Warrior started chasing them, and I think Dragon Warrior 3 was the pinnacle of that chase because it was very similar in different classes you could pick for your team, but you had much more in the way of choice, and a lot of different things happened with those classes as you progressed through the game. And I think, God, I only played through that game one time all the way through. Dragon Warrior 3. So I really, really want to replay that. But again, getting a hold of a fucking copy, it's going to cost me a goddamn arm and a leg. So we'll see. And Dragon Warrior 2, the memories I have of that were the fact that you didn't really get a choice with your party. You got 3 characters, and it was always the same 3 characters. So I don't like not having options in video games. That's something else you're going to learn about me. I like having options. That's one of the reasons why the first Final Fantasy appealed to me so much, because you can build your team however the fuck you want. You can do 4 white mages if you want, but you can play through it with whatever team you choose. And then there's that replayability when you can try a different team out. And I did that. That was one of the things that kept me in Final Fantasy for years, was the fact that I like, okay, cool. My first team was a fighter, a thief, a red mage, and a white mage. Now let me do like a fighter, a fucking monk, a black mage, and a white mage. And I love options. I hate linear games. I hate when game developers try to force you into a specific play style or something like that. And that's what Dragon Warrior 2 was, and I'm pretty sure Dragon Warrior 2 came out after Final Fantasy, which is why I wasn't that big on it, because you had 3 characters. They were 3 different kind of classes, and that was it. There were no options. Whereas with Final Fantasy 3, all that was out the window and sky was the limit. So yeah, that's why I want to play that. But go back to my notes here. So with the emulation, for me, it's always going to be a last resort. And obviously, again, because it's illegal, disclaimer or whatnot, but it'll always be a last resort for me, because if I want to play a game, I want to play it on the original console with that original controller in my fucking hand, be it a PlayStation game, Super Nintendo, NES, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, whatever. I like that original feel. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just so in tune with games that these emulators feel unnatural, because it is. They're trying to replicate or emulate the feel of that console, and sometimes it's just a little bit off, and a lot of it's in the controller too. The controller is really important. And I mean, just thinking about the feel of that NES controller in my hand, you just yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. Luna Girl dreams of a day owning a living room that has an entire wall dedicated to every console they own and have owned in the past, all hooked up to a big screen TV. Yeah, I completely agree. And again, we're only scratching the surface with some of my retro game desires. I'm only focusing right now on the NES stuff, but when we get to the Super Nintendo, there's going to be a whole slew of games and things that, I either used to have or I've always wanted. Fun fact, never played Chrono Trigger. Now, Chrono Trigger is one of those games where you can get the original version as it was on a virtual console type thing. In fact, the PlayStation does that. PlayStation, the way they've done their digital games, at least with the PlayStation Vita and the PS3, fucking phenomenal. the way you're able to tie them to your PlayStation account, and especially with the Vita and the PS3, like if you owned a PlayStation 1 Classic on the PS3, you could put it right onto your Vita and play it that way. And I have a lot of games like that on there, and a bunch of games that I wish. Oh, GoldenEye. GoldenEye was the N64. Oh my God. Dave and I have got to do an episode dedicated strictly to GoldenEye because it was incredibly groundbreaking at the time. GoldenEye 64, because yes, first person shooters had been around a little bit. Obviously Doom and Wolfenstein on the PC, those had been around forever. GoldenEye was one of the first person shooters on a home console in a full 3D environment. And I think it was the first multiplayer first person shooter game on a console, because you had that 4-player split screen in the multiplayer mode in GoldenEye. And I spent countless hours. This was back right after I joined the Air Force. I was living in the dorms for a couple of years. I got to McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey, living in the dorms a month before the N64 came out. Like, yeah, maybe a month or two after I moved into the dorms, it came out. I went out and got it. GoldenEye came out early the next year, 98, I want to say, or it might even have been a launch title. And it was mind-blowing, the things that they were able to do on these fucking consoles. Not only Mario 64, which, holy shit, that game, talk about groundbreaking with the 3D platformers and everything else. GoldenEye, also very groundbreaking. The N64 really does not get the credit that it deserves for the ground that it broke at the time. Unfortunately, everybody was on Sony's PlayStation nuts at that point. So what can you do? Ugh. Oh, you know what I used to love, Luna Girl? There was a mode you can unlock if you beat the game. If you did something, you somehow had to unlock it. But there was a mode you can unlock where every enemy in the game had a rocket launcher in GoldenEye. And what I did was I unlocked that mode, and then I played through the entire game where every single enemy had a fucking rocket launcher. Holy shit, was that hard? Because if you remember the rocket launchers from GoldenEye, they were pretty fucking rough. So imagine every single enemy having one. All the little grunts. Oh my God. It was fun though. It was a challenge, but it was really, really fun to do. And God, I would love to see some sort of remake. There was rumor of a GoldenEye remake or like an HD remake years ago that I think might have fallen through. And I know over the years people have tried to recreate it in like these other game engines and stuff, like as side projects. But yeah, we just need a return to fucking GoldenEye 64. Just give it modern first-person shooter controls, give it a slight graphical upgrade, and that's it. And then just leave it at that and let us play it, because it was so fun. But oh 50 seconds left on my Dragon Warrior 1 and 2 thing. Am I signed into this eBay app? Fuck, hold on. Let me do this real quick. Let's go up to 16. I'd pay 16 for that. Ooh, I'm the highest bidder. Oh, fuck, that's in Canadian dollars. Oh, that's actually less in US. So right now, my current bid is $9.72 with 20 seconds left. You're watching this live, folks. Dragon Warrior 1 and 2, Game Boy Color. I'm playing a lot of piano lately. All right, here we go. No, I was outbid at the last second. Motherfucker. It's okay. It's okay. I've got other stuff to occupy my time, and I'll just keep looking. So anyway, as far as the emulation stuff goes, the retro, yeah, it's called Retro Pi, is what you can do on the Raspberry Pi, the Retro Pi, and it's pretty nice. I gotta admit, I mean, you can throw a shitload of games on these things from all sorts of systems. You can do Genesis, the Game Boys, Game Boy Advance. I think it even supports N64, but you'd have to set up your controller and everything else. So I don't know how good that would be, but yeah, it's the emulation to me is one of those necessary evils because some of these games are never going to see the light of day again. Like really, Snow Brothers, I don't think Nintendo or whoever the fuck developed that will ever release that on any console. And you got to wonder too, some of these companies if the companies went under and nobody knows who owns the original source code or if the original source code just got fucking lost in translation somewhere and is never to be heard of again. That's another thing that could prevent a lot of these games from being re-released is either legal hurdles, be it a company goes under, somebody else buys them out, or they had split ownership, one person's claiming ownership. I don't know. I'm just gonna Google the fucking Contra thing. Why isn't the original Contra so when you type in why isn't the original Contra, Google auto finishes isn't the original contraceptive pill for me available. All right, let's see that. And they also say that the reason why Contra is not in the NES Classic is because Nintendo just worked with the games that had been approved way back in 2006. Whoa. Huh. Okay. Yeah. Apparently, a lot of bureaucratic hurdles. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I don't know. Apparently, there was just a clerical error that caused Contra not to be on the NES Classic. But anyway, so yeah, Dragon Buddy mentioned, yeah, emulation is great just for keeping games alive. However, the original does wear off so quick. And you know what? That's a fair point too. These games, if you grew up on the NES games, everybody has memories of blowing into the fucking cartridge because these contacts they didn't last a long time. And I think it was mostly the contacts in the console itself because the games, obviously you'd be taking them in and out, but it was the console. No matter what you played, the console, there was a little bit of wear every time. In fact, when I was looking at original consoles on eBay, a lot of them say, oh yeah, the 72 pin connector is refurbished or whatever. And we're eventually going to get to a point where all of these original cartridges, they're all going to be worn to the point of being unplayable. And then what? Right? So again, that's where the emulation can kind of preserve these games, so to speak. But really, if any fucking Joe Schmuck with a computer can figure this out, why can't Nintendo and these developers just get together and be like, look, motherfuckers, we're not making a dime off of what all of these people are downloading. If we just fucking harvested all of these ROMs and then put them on our own fucking virtual console and sold them legitimately, we could make millions. Throw the original Contra on there, sell it for $3 a pop. You would sell a ton of copies. I would love to have the original Contra on my fucking 3DS because I bought a lot of NES games on the virtual console legitimately because they're games that I just wanted to play, like these original NES games in their original form on a fucking handheld. So, I think I bought both Zeldas on my 3DS. I've got Punch Out featuring Mr. Dream. I'd love it if it was Mike Tyson's Punch Out, but fucking whatever. The original Donkey Kong, even though yes, I've been very adamant about being against these arcade style games, the original Donkey Kong is something special. I don't know if any of you have not seen the documentary The King of Kong or The Kings of Kong. Go watch it. It's all about Steve Wiebe and oh god, what the hell was his name? Kind of a jerk guy. He actually just got like all of his records just fucking stripped from him last year because apparently he was cheating a lot. But yeah, it's about their chase for the high score in Donkey Kong. Really, really good documentary. And then a year after that, or maybe 2 years after that documentary came out, they had this big event, this big Donkey Kong event here in New Jersey, maybe an hour from where I live. And they called it the Kong Off. It was the first ever Kong Off. And Steve Wiebe was there. I met him, fucking Billy Mitchell. That was who the guy was. Billy Mitchell was there. The guy who eventually fucking broke both of their records. Shit. He's a plastic surgeon, Asian guy. Fuck, I can't remember his name. I was actually friends with him on Facebook for a while after that because I took a picture of he and I together, and he's like, "Oh yeah, tag me in that on Facebook. Add me as a Facebook friend." I'm like, "Okay." So yeah, it was a lot of fun to go to. But yeah, go see that documentary, The King of Kong, or I can't remember if it's The King of Kong or The Kings of Kong. I'll just fucking Google it real quick because I have the technology. The King of Kong. The King of Kong, A Fistful of Quarters from 2007. Yep. And I wonder if it's streaming anywhere. Yep, you got to buy it on Amazon. So anyway, just look it up. Great, great documentary about the chase for the high score of Donkey Kong. Well, shit, I guess that's it. Anything else you guys want me to talk about before I close this out? It was a short episode today, but I just sort of wanted to throw it together. Again, my final stance on emulation is I'm not encouraging anyone to pirate old video games, but if it's your only choice, what the fuck are you going to do, right? I want to do a thing. You ever seen those videos on YouTube where it's like kids react to this thing, teenagers react to this. I just want to get a fucking a group of modern fucking teenagers that are like big gamers, big like first person shooters, and haven't played through Contra. That's it. Just like give them Contra and be like, beat this game, finish the first level of this game, and just kind of see how things go. I think that'd be great. But yeah, I guess that's it for this bonus episode. Next time I do this, I think I'm going to start moving on from the NES, even though I am still going to be looking for stuff NES wise, the other Dragon Warriors, Mike Tyson's Punch Out, Contra. I think I've kind of talked enough about it over the last couple of bonus episodes. Maybe we'll start touching on the Super Nintendo, the N64, PlayStation. I got a lot of PlayStation stuff. Even though, I was a big N64 guy, I still had a PlayStation. There were still a lot of PlayStation games I loved, which, oh, by the way, coming up, now that we're getting close to the fall, we're a week into September now. I'm going to start, as we're getting closer to Halloween, I want to start replaying all of the original Resident Evil games. So and I'm going to make my kids, at least my youngest son, Ben, watch me as I play through my original, or play through the original Resident Evil games. Now, to be fair, when I play the first Resident Evil, this is one of those times where remakes, I think, are actually a good thing. The remake they did for the first Resident Evil on the GameCube, fucking flawless. Great, great game. Resident Evil 2, I also have a version of that. They did a version of that for the Dreamcast. I'll probably play that on the Dreamcast. Same for Resident Evil 3. And then Resident Evil 4, I don't know if I'll play that. But the first 3 Resident Evils, I really want to play leading up to this Halloween. Have my son Ben in the room with me as I'm playing through it because I think he'd really enjoy it. Ben, he loves horror movies. He loves being scared, all that kind of stuff. Whereas my 2 older boys, a bunch of old chicken shits. So, and yes, I want to see this sacred list of treasured video games from Lunar Girl and Dragon Buddy. You guys have me really intrigued now. I'm like, ooh, God, I wonder what's in this. So, Yeah, and now are we talking strictly NES? Like what consoles are we talking here? We talking Super Nintendo and 64, PlayStation? What do you think you have buried in the sacred closet? So I guess that's it. It's kind of hard when I don't have another person here to bounce stuff off of, because it's easier to just keep rolling and rolling when I have Dave here. So when it's just me, it's kind of hard to talk by myself for an hour straight. So hopefully this was mildly entertaining. And yeah, looking forward to doing another one of these. I'm still trying to figure out how I want to do this on a more permanent basis. I did the poll in the sidebar cantina saying, "Hey, do you want me to stick to retro games, or do you want me to like delve into other topics?" Most people were saying, do other topics," which I was kind of hoping they'd all say retro games, because that's really what I want to do. So I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll work through this together. You and I, you the audience, and I the guy on this side of the screen. So, all right. Well, that's it. Thank you everybody for joining. I know Lunar Girl and Dragon Buddy are still in the chat. Bronco Fett had to peace out. Solsky had to peace out. But just another big plug. Check out From a Gen X Point of View on all of the social media. We're at Gen X POV on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at Gen X POV. Easy to find us. Check out our friends, the Escape Pod, over there, wherever you get your audio podcasts, and they're also on YouTube. Big Swede's Excellent Adventure. Love that guy. Super cool dude. Check him out on YouTube. The Used and Abused podcast coming back next week with a whole new relaunched show. So check them out. I'm forgetting somebody. Layman's Terms on YouTube. Another good friend of ours. He joined Big Swede on Big Swede's Excellent Adventure on a stream he did this week. The Orange and Fett show, which those guys need to give me some links for their show to where I can actually pimp it easier on this. And I guess that's it. So good night, everybody. Thanks for sticking with me, and I will talk to you all very soon. And just remember, everything I told you today was true from a Gen X point of view.